What's up, everyone? Zero here. Welcome back to the channel. I got another episode of the podcast for you guys. Today I sat down with Dreamcore again. This is his second appearance on the podcast. In my opinion, I agree with Gog. He is one of the most underrated content creators in the Path of Exile space. So I really hope you guys go and show him some love after this. And if you're not already subscribed, go subscribe to his channel. He makes a ton of content and you can learn a lot from him. If you guys want to support my channel further, you can consider joining the YouTube channel and you'll get all my content a day before it would normally go to the public. I know it's not much, but it's what I can offer you guys right now until I'm able to do this full time, and then I can come up with some other perks for you guys. But yeah, I also do have a Patreon, and then we have a Discord server that we're trying to grow, so hop on over there as well. And with that being said, let's get into the episode. So cool. Welcome back to another episode of Dreamcore. This is your second time on, so you obviously need no introduction anyway, but do you want to just let people know who you are just in case?
Sure, yeah. I make Path of Exile 1 and 2 content, mostly like tech videos, mechanics, deep dives, stuff like that.
Yeah, so if anybody hasn't checked it out yet, definitely check out your channel. You have a lot of, you put out a lot of content that people can kind of put together and like create their own ideas from, which I think is a really cool concept. Me and Gog were talking about it. You're probably one of the most underrated POE content creators that's out there. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, for sure. I get a lot out of your videos. What build are you playing this league?
So when I first started, I played a gas grenade Pathfinder, which is something that I kind of tested out gas grenade quite a bit in 0.2 towards the end of the league. Mainly because I wanted to try out the changes that they had put in on all the micro patches, right, that happened after 0.2's launch. Mm-hmm. That was actually on a Acolyte of Cholula, so it was a different Ascendancy. But I just wanted to do a bit of testing with the skill, mostly just a poison setup. And then when it came to 0.3, the patch notes came out and the Acolyte of Cholula lost reality rending, which is the whole concept of using gas grenade on that build, which was the extra damage as chaos. Which means that that Ascendancy is no longer really a thing for gas grenade. I think you can probably still make it work, but I didn't want to go with that. So I went with the Pathfinder, which is a really standard gas grenade poison stacking setup, right? There's nothing too interesting going on there. Not a lot of interesting mechanic kind of combinations, but it's mostly just a standard setup. Nothing too out of the ordinary, but it's not a Deadeye at least, right?
Right. That's how I feel right now too. I'm like, anything I play, as long as it's not a Deadeye, I'm straight. I feel like Deadeye is just like such an obvious choice for power this league. I kind of wanted to try a bunch of stuff differently. Like right now I'm playing a cast on crit invoker. I was talking with you about it a little bit before, but the hollow palm, it's just the amount of attack speed that you can get from that is absolutely absurd. It's completely busted. I don't know if you've checked it out at all, but it's pretty wild.
I haven't, no. Some of the stuff in the game is so fast right now, though. You can just be so... I don't know if you've seen Paustron's build. He's just like flying all over the screen.
No, I haven't. What build is he? What build is he?
He's playing a Titan. He is using a quarterstaff. I can't remember what attack he's using now, but he is literally just flying all over the screen. It's crazy. Like the speed that he's able to clear like an entire map is just... It's wild.
Yeah, dude. I don't know if you saw Captain Lance's impending doom build that he made. It looks really, really cool, dude. It's like the same one from POE1. I can't remember. I think it's played on an occultist. If I remember correctly. Do you know what build I'm referring to? The impending doom.
Yeah, I remember the impending doom builds from. I want to say they're from Affliction or maybe Trial of the Ancestors time. Somewhere around that time was when they were like really popular.
Yeah,
I think it was around that time.
Yeah, this is it reminded me a lot. I played this build. This is the one where you have to like really focus on like AoE and overlapping circles. And so it just reminded me a lot of that build. I was like, damn, that's cool that came back.
I have to check that out. I haven't checked out that build. I know I checked out Captain Lance's build that he was playing before that, the Blood Mage. That was just ridiculous. The damage that character was doing was ridiculous.
Yeah, that's where I got the so I was playing a cast on crit Blood Mage before the Invoker, and I got the base of the build, like how he kind of put together the skills, at least with like Ember, Fusillade, and Fireball. I just kind of took that and built upon that and kind of went a different direction on the passive tree. But that's what I like about this game, dude, is the Path of Exile 2 is different in that regard, where you can kind of just figure it out. In Path of Exile 1, it's not as intuitive. In this game, I know we were talking about it before with the passive tree, but regardless of all the downsides, it's still very intuitive on where you need to go. And I think that's a good start for them, because it's not like that in POE1.
It's like on the passive tree, there are specific clusters that you basically must take on certain builds. So in that aspect, you kind of like want to pass them. I think there's like an upside and a downside to that, right? The upside is, like you're saying, it is very intuitive. Like, this is a extremely good node. Like, for example, for my build for the poison setup, you are taking the +1 maximum poison on the 2 nodes that have it on the tree, because, you know, of course you are, right? You're doing a poison stacking setup. The downside of that is that it is kind of one-dimensional in that way that, like, every build that's playing a Pathfinder that is stacking poisons is always taking both of those nodes. And if you look at on the POE2 Ninja site, right, you can see like a heat map of what passives people are taking. And if you look on Pathfinder and you take a look at like poison Pathfinder builds, you know, every single build is going for that pathing that goes straight across on the right side of the tree to that one poison branch, because you just have to do it, right? There isn't another way to path. You can't really anoint that node, because the other nodes next to it are also really strong. You have like immunity. They added a new notable on that cluster this patch, which is immunity to poison, which is just, okay, we'll take that for 1 point, sure. And then the other stuff is really strong. So yeah, it's there's upsides and downsides to that for sure.
So I wanted to ask you, so I was looking at your build, is there a reason why you didn't go mortar cannon?
Yes, because mortar cannon, I've actually played a new build since, and I've been trying out mortar cannon. Originally, when I first, before I started playing this league, I wanted to play mortar cannon, but I wasn't convinced on the mechanics of how the skill was going to work. So I ended up not starting it, because I thought, well, I'm not convinced, so I'll start something else that I do know how it's going to work, right? So the reason why I'm not playing mortar cannon is because mortar cannon has a 50% less damage multiplier on it.
Right.
And you'll still have the same limit of poisons, right? So you still have 6 poisons, which means that you'll generally just be locked at half damage than you would otherwise be doing.
Right.
Mortar cannon is really strong when you're able to abuse the whole like refreshing cooldowns of hit-based skills. So like a lot of people have been doing cluster grenade with it this league. I'll just go briefly into the build that I'm playing at the moment, which is like a complete experiment, right? I wanted to try solo self-found in this league because I've heard nothing but good things about it after all the crafting changes and things like that.
Yeah, the crafting
so I started a new character.
It makes it so good now.
Yeah. So I started, because obviously SSF has been really bad, right? And I'll just say outright, like, I'm someone who plays SSF almost exclusively in POE1.
Right.
And I have not enjoyed SSF in POE2 in the previous 2 leagues. So I wanted to try it out. So so far I've been having a pretty good time in SSF in this league. But the build that I'm playing at the moment is a mortar cannon build using flash grenade as a main skill. So the reason for that is because flash grenade was obviously designed as a utility skill, right? How could it be anything else? It's a 5-second cooldown. It has about half the damage of explosive grenade, and it has like a giant stun build-up, and it blinds, right? So the idea of using this as main skill might sound a bit ridiculous, but the fact that every time you summon a mortar cannon, it has all of its charges refreshed and you don't need to care about cooldown, means that you can just continuously summon these and they continuously throw out flash grenades.
Yeah.
That means that everything on your screen is stunned and blinded all the time. Like, literally everything is just hard stunned. Like, nothing moves. Every rare monster is stunned, right? It's crazy. Like, there's so much stun build up on flash grenade that you can stun, like, rare monsters twice. Like, they get stunned, and then they come out of the stun, and they just get immediately stunned again. So that's a build that I've been trying out recently, like, you know, playing around with it a little bit. And because the way the game is balanced right now is that the kind of top end of builds, like when you get a really good weapon, you're able to delete bosses in, like, less than a second, right? Ridiculous damage that you can get to, like damage scaling.
Right.
And so a skill like flash grenade, you can actually just beat the game with it. Right, even though it's half the damage of like explosive grenade. I'm playing on a Titan to take advantage of the the stunning strikes and also the 50% more damage against heavy stun targets. So that's something that I'm playing around with at the moment. And as I said, it's kind of an experiment. I mainly wanted to try out SSF, but so far, so good.
I'm surprised that you're able to see. How many fingers am I holding up, dude? I mean, come on, that's pretty wild.
You're wearing sunglasses, right? While playing that build.
Yeah, I saw Zizarin was doing that on stream, dude. He had his glasses on when he was testing that. I thought it was really funny. But I tried the first build I tried was on a tactician. I went tactician, and then I didn't really I didn't have too much faith in the deflection node, like the way the deflection was going to work, and I was trying to do like an evasion only build because I was like, okay, well maybe with the deflection it'll be a little bit different, and then I wanted to switch over to like a little bit to hybrid, and I was just kind of really having a problem solving for defenses, but the I could have taken it to the end, and actually fixed it, but the screen clarity or the visual clarity, dude, was so bad. Like everybody, my chat was laughing at me, dude, because you just can't see anything at all. There's just so many grenades going off, and it's like you can't see any of the ground effects. And then with Abyss, dude, it's like you just have to drop your mortar cannons and then run away because you can't see anything.
I mean, I've played those two builds this league. Gas Grenade especially was horrible visual clarity. Like I couldn't see anything in Abyss because everything in Abyss is black and green, so it just merges in with the Gas Grenade, right? And the mortar cannon is the same. Like you're right, you can't see any. I mean, the visual clarity in this game might be worse than POE1, and it's only like 3 leagues in. It's actually really bad, and I think that visual clarity is a big problem, but it's made worse by them constantly adding like ground degens and things that are like high damage that you can barely see, like that happen after the monster dies, right? So like in this league, I think there's 3 or 4 things like that. You have the little green blobs that like hover above the ground, and if you go over them, they explode after like half a second, I think. Then you have like the larger green like crystals that go around in like a circle, right?
Yeah.
They're much more obvious. Those things are way more obvious like to see. Then you have the ground puddles, like the degen, that you actually can't see if you have any kind of explosions or ground covering like gas cloud or whatever. You literally cannot see it, right? It's invisible. So I do think that visual clarity is a problem if they continue to add things that will kill you after the fact that you've killed the monster.
Yeah, I don't really understand that design. Like they seem to be just adding more of that stuff into the game rather than taking stuff away, which is really, really odd. It's like they don't want to give us. I know I've noticed people asking for like an MTX of just, hey, let us disable the skill so we don't have to see it. But they refuse to do that, and they just keep adding more and more and more like ground effects and shit that's just gonna kill you if you don't notice it. I'm playing right now. The current build I'm playing is the Invoker, the cast on crit one, and I'm using Shattering Palm. So when it hits, it spreads out all those ice crystals over like an AoE, and then I get these like chain explosions of ice from Herald of Ice coupled with that, and it you can't see anything like at all, and that's just from like a chaining like explosion. It's not like I'm not putting anything on the ground. That's just from the monsters, and I still can't see. So like I know
that. I was going to say, I know that back in POE1, there was a time, I'm trying to remember when this was. I want to say this was maybe like 5 leagues back. It was probably sometime around like Sanctum League, maybe Calandra or something like that. There was a big discussion that happened within the community, and even the developers kind of chimed in on Detonate Dead, right? Because Detonate Dead had been in the game for a long time, and it had only gotten worse in terms of monsters using Detonate Dead, because way back when you only had a couple of different types of monsters in the game that could use Detonate Dead, and then over time they've added more and more monsters. These days we have so many different types of monsters in POE1 that do Detonate Dead. We've got like the basic monsters, the Stygians or whatever they're called, that do like that. They've always been Detonate Dead right in the campaign. Then you've got like the Tolman boss that does it. There's another boss as well that does Detonate Dead. I can't remember his name now, Madagaro. And then you have like the monsters that were added in Affliction that do like Chaos Detonate Dead, right? And they kind of continuously add these Detonate Dead things into the game. And I do remember a discussion that happened where I'm trying to remember whether it was Mark or it might have been Chris back then, actually, who said that basically they struggle with finding ways to kill the character, right? Because the more and more kind of power creep there is in terms of like how much a character can regen and how much defensive mechanics they have layered on top of that, means that they really struggle to threaten the character to a point where they can actually die, which is why those like detonate dead and on death mechanics even exist in the first place, and why they're so threatening is because they need a way to be able to threaten the character's life, right? Which is basically what they got to with that. And I don't know if that's still a piece of that coming through now in POE2, of that kind of design philosophy of we have to threaten the character somehow, right? In POE2, it shouldn't quite be there yet, because we don't have, we do have the same kind of recovery for some ridiculous interactions, right? There's like that crazy timeless keystone in this patch from Undying Hate, which is just giving blood mages ridiculous regen, right? Like that's absurd levels of regen. But just to be like, from a kind of more standard view, without these crazy outliers, we don't have this crazy recovery that exists in POE1. And so I'm not sure if the same philosophy should...
Just so you know, I was just sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but the blood mage, they have that I think it's 10% of your spell leech, right? I think that's one of the nodes, right? So I have the gloves that make all your crits instant leech. So when you're 100% crit, as long as you're hitting, you just can't die.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I do wonder whether there's a bit of that philosophy creeping in, because they kind of feel like the player is already like that powerful. It could be, it literally could be that, right? And we even had in POE1 recently, they changed Detonate Dead so that it's now much more telegraphed. But occasionally these things still creep into the game, right? We actually saw it in this season. I'm not sure if you saw the death that Quinn69 had in 0.3. I think it was maybe his second character. He died to what looked like Detonate Dead, but you could barely see it, right? There was a tiny animation that you could see.
That's the one everyone was reacting to, right? Where everybody was trying to figure it out. Yeah, I remember that.
So, I mean, I don't really know what their stance is on this, but that kind of... my impression of it is that they feel like they don't have enough threatening content in the game to kill the player, so that's why these on-death effects exist. For me personally, I think the on-death effects they shouldn't be in the game, like, for the most part.
They're pretty egregious.
I think some on-death effects are good, okay? Some are done very well. You have the bloater monsters in... I think it's in Act 3 when you first go down the long flight of steps, right? And then you go down into that like city, and there's those very large monsters. When they die, they kind of have this giant animation and then they explode, right? That is done. That is on death effect done well. If it's telegraphed like that, then that's fine. If it's something which is on the ground and you can barely see it, or maybe not see it at all, depending on what skill you're using, then there's a problem.
Right. I on my invoker currently, I regen half of my energy shield pool in 1 second, and then my recharge start is less than 2 seconds. I'm trying to get it down to like 1.5 right now. It's like 1.8. But the way that Ice Strike and Shattering Palm works is you're dashing around. So there's as long as you can get to the point where you dash like twice, your energy shield just starts again. So it's like it just, there's nothing really like I got it to the point now where I'm like dying very, very, very rarely in certain cases where I'll get swarmed and stunned, and I don't have any like charm charges or anything. I'll get stunned, and then I'll get swarmed and stun locked, and that's about the only time I ever die. But as long as I can keep dashing, there's nothing that can kill me except for ground effects. Yeah,
ground effects are just wild.
Yeah.
And if it's like the way it works in POE1 with like dash abilities, in POE1 it was like you see your character going from like A to B with like a leap slam, But your character, in terms of like the actual location that your character is, in regards to where the game server thinks the character is, it's either at point A or point B. It's never in between.
Right.
So it's like you have like, you know, if the degen is at point B, but you're not actually there yet on screen, right? You're already taking the damage. So yeah, that's one of those things with the degen that's just like really awkward, right? With like dash skills and things like that. And like you said, like if you're exploding screens with all these ice explosions, you can't see it.
Yeah,
right? It's not visible.
You know what's funny is like one of the most telegraphed on death effects that I think is the most egregious is the one in the Trial of the Sekimas on the floor 2 boss. How when they fall, they die, but it AoEs the entire arena. So unless you're staying like all the way on the other end, you're taking honor damage, and that's
I've
crazy.
taken so much damage from that. Like,
but it's crazy. Like, what is the point of that, dude? It's like you designed a mechanic to where the whole point of it is to take as little damage as possible to your honor. And then you're going to make it to where, all right, we're going to trick them. When they go in to grab the loot or the sacred water, we're just going to blow these things up. It just, I'm like, I don't know if that's kind of like a troll or what, but.
A lot of those things, it does feel like that they wanted to do something thematic, but it ends up being, it just kind of ends up not really working in the type of game they've made. I don't know if that's like a good way of describing it. Like, it does feel like we can even talk about like maces and shield skills and things like that in POE2, right? All of it feels like very, very thematic, but then it doesn't really fit into the pace of the game.
Right.
So like, you know, holding up your shield and like blocking with raised shield, you know, and then like the idea of here comes a monster and then you block its hit and then you drop your shield, then you attack it. Right. That is like very thematic. Like, yeah, okay, that makes sense thematically, but that's not the actual gameplay that people are doing. Right. People are not actually doing that.
It'd be different if there were 3 monsters on the screen.
Yeah, exactly. They can't do it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's literally impossible, because there's monsters attacking you from behind. There's, you know, you're getting like a bunch of degens and stuff on the ground. It's just, yeah, it's it does feel like some of those things are more thematic in terms of their design, but they probably don't really fit in the game anymore.
Yeah, we were talking about that before the podcast started, where it feels like they had a really good idea as far as how they wanted to design the game, but when they keep adding in mechanics like Abyss, it just makes it impossible. You can't set up, you don't have time to set up combos unless it's somehow like automated in the build. It's you don't have time when you're being surrounded by 50 monsters. It just doesn't work that way. Like, you don't have time.
Yeah, it's
you can't think.
There's definitely a bit of a disconnect there, I think, between the initial scope of the game, at least in terms of what we were presented, and what we have now. Especially, so, you know, when we got 0.1, the initial launch of the game, we had an end game which was, you know, it wasn't really much of anything because it was hastily put together, which makes sense. The idea that we have this kind of slower paced game in the campaign, then we get to the end game and everything's really fast, well, that was a product of them just dropping in like POE1 mechanics and monsters and monster modifiers and stuff like that, right? It wasn't really tuned to the POE2 player abilities. And so that's why people were getting swarmed in 0.1, and that's why people didn't like the end game, is because it just didn't feel like the pacing was right. But now in 0.3, we've got Abyss, like you mentioned there, and Abyss is basically, you know, doing the same thing. I mean, you can't really, there's nothing to be argued there, really. Abyss is, you're getting swarmed by very fast monsters. And like, that's a new mechanic that they've designed for POE2, right? Even though it's carrying the name of Abyss, it's not like Abyss in POE1. There is quite a few differences there.
Yeah, there's a lot of differences.
So that is something that they've designed from scratch for POE2, and yet the design of the mechanic is very fast-paced and very much more aligned with how POE1 works, which is kind of feels like the game is going in that direction, right? It's going to be like a more, you know, faster-paced game overall compared to what we saw initially.
Right. I was going to ask you, sorry, I was going to ask you a question. It just completely slipped my mind right now. I hate when that happens. I'm getting too old, man. I swear to God. I was going to ask you about build diversity right now in the game. I know you put together your video just recently, just about where power comes from in the game, and I know we touched upon it briefly before the podcast started. What are your thoughts right now on the ascendancies and maybe how they could make them better? Like, do you have any thoughts on, like, because I was talking to you on the last episode of the podcast that we looked at some of the nodes where they just give you like a one-line skill, and I think that's a cool idea, but I really feel like there's something else lacking there. Like, there should be some other stat that goes with that skill that kind of makes it a lot better. So like time freeze, like you could do something like increase curse duration or something, you know, that just goes with that skill. What are your thoughts on that?
So, I mean, let's talk about Chronomancer, because that's like the most obvious one, I think.
Right.
Chronomancer really stands out at the moment as being this very, very oddball ascendancy compared to everything else. I think, for me, boring comes to mind, is the word that I would say, because unless you're doing something very specific to utilize like the whole like cooldowns and like here I can do like this, I can use this skill like 2 times, then I can like, you know, use this skill so I can refresh the cooldowns, so I can use it 2 times again, which is something that people were doing with like Hammer of the Gods in 0.1. People were doing like Hammer of the Gods Chronomancer, right? Which is the idea of just being able to like spam this skill a couple of times, and other classes couldn't do it because they didn't have access to that skill to refresh charges. I think you're kind of on the right line there with them needing to add something to those nodes, because they feel like they're just very. I like the idea of ascendancies providing skills, but I think the Chronomancer takes it one step too far, maybe even 2 or 3 steps too far, where it has loads of these. I think it has like four unique skills, maybe. It does, yeah. Maybe it might be three or 4.
Hold on, let me pull up Path of Building real quick. Sometimes it takes you off the screen when I do this. Okay, let's see. Okay, so
it might be too many 3 or 4 skills.
Let's see. It has, okay, so you get Sands of Time, and then you have Inevitable Agony, then you have Time Freeze, and then you have Time Snap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, in 0.1, when people were doing a lot of experimentation, there were some really interesting builds that came out.
Oh, and you get Temporal Rift too. So it's 5 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is crazy, right? Like that is like that. So part of the reason why this is a problem with an ascendancy like Chronomancer is that when you come to like thinking about making a build on this class, you have to kind of you kind of have to go through a lot of different hoops with like, here's this skill that I want to use, right? Let's say you want to use Time Freeze, right? Let's say there was a couple of builds in 0.1 that used a bunch of skill effect duration stacking to make Time Freeze really, really long. I think they ended up getting the stun to like 30 seconds, right? Which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's say you wanted to use Time Freeze, right? Well, now you kind of have to work these other things into the build that you're going for, that you may not really have any use of, or you find them really hard to use because they're extremely specific. So for example, like one of the more generic nodes on that ascendancy is the recoup one, right? Which is actually, I mean, the recoup's actually quite good on Chronomancer, especially with like Sacrosanctum, for example, the unique body armor that applies your life recoup to your energy shield recoup as well, which is very, very powerful, especially in combination with the Chronomancer, because you can make it 4 seconds rather than 8. So basically you say, okay, I want to use Time Freeze, but now I pretty much have to use Recoup because it's one of the only generic nodes on the tree. And if I'm not using Recoup, I then have to, go down this other branch, which is like chance to not use a cooldown use, or, go down the other side and like refresh cooldowns or something like that.
Right.
So, but what if your build doesn't care about cooldowns? Or you kind of get what I'm getting to here. It's
yeah, I understand.
You really want to do something, with one node or like with two nodes, you have a good idea. But now you don't really have the other supporting options there for the like other ascendancies might have access to. If we could to compare that to Deadeye, which is like most popular ascendancy right now, which just has a bunch of generically strong stuff, right? Nothing is really that specific or niche on Deadeye. You have the Frenzy Charge branch, which is actually, I suppose you could say that's a little bit niche, but then not really, because there are quite a few skills in the game which consume charges at this point, and there's only going to be more as time goes on.
Right.
You have the Mark branch there as well. But mostly, like, for example, you have one branch that gives you a bunch of movement speed, skill speed, and evasion, right? You could say that you're a little bit shoehorned into evasion, but you're also on that side of the tree, so that's not really anything.
Right.
Then you get a bunch of generic damage reduction from your Tailwind as the node that comes off of that. So immediately, that is two notables that are extremely strong for almost any build in the game. You could play almost any build in the game on Deadeye and use those two nodes, and it'll be good, right? Because it's just speed. So then you have the projectile branch, which, okay, now you're getting a little bit more shoehorned into a projectile build, right? You're kind of taking like melee or some other spell, like area spell builds out of the equation. But again, this is just an extra projectile, and it's more damage against either close targets or targets that are far away, right, from those two different notables. Yeah. Which is, again, very, very broad in application, extremely broad. This is why Deadeye is so popular in this league, is because you can play, if you're playing grenades or if you're playing, lightning arrow, like lightning rod, that kind of stuff. And I've even seen some Deadeye spell projectile builds this league as well. Like, it doesn't really matter. You can just use that kind of template on Deadeye, and it's going to be good. Right. Okay. So that is kind of the way I feel about the comparison of those two extremes on ascendancies. The other ascendancies are somewhere in the middle. Like, I think Warbringer, especially after the buffs to Warbringer, okay, the block branch was a little bit nerfed, but some of the other stuff got buffed there. I think Warbringer does have some interesting options there, and that design philosophy is going in the right direction, right? You have the totem branch, which gives you an extra maximum totem. After they changed the tree, it's now a lot harder to get a lot of maximum totems. Yeah. So that is actually a more powerful notable. We didn't realize it before the league's launch, but after they changed the tree, it's now more powerful than it first appeared. Then you have the minions that give you buffs. That's kind of the specialized part of that totem branch, right? That's exactly what you were just saying about the skills on the Chronomancer, right? On that Warbringer node, you get the +1 totem, but you also get the minions on top. Exactly. So you're getting the +1 totem. That's meaningful for any totem build. Then you have the minions on top, which is a little bit of extra niche kind of thing for that particular ascendancy, which no other ascendancy can get. That's the specialized part. Right. And then behind it, you got the totems take damage for you, which is actually really, really quite good. And yeah, you have like the armor break stuff, which isn't that, inverted armor break isn't that great at the moment. It's not very powerful, but it's still going in the right direction. It's a concept that allows you to scale a mechanic beyond how other ascendancies would. If we contrast that to the Deadeye, which just gets an extra projectile, it's just an extra projectile, right? That's not something that other ascendancies can't scale. They already do scale projectile count, but Deadeye just gets one more than anyone else can. So it's just like, okay, then Deadeye is just the best projectile ascendancy, right? Right. So that's I'd like to see more niche, powerful things on ascendancies, and I think that Warbringer is quite a good example of it. It just needs more in that kind of way. You need a good balance of here's something that's niche and powerful, and here's a few generic supporting nodes that make sense. Right. I was looking at the War Caller's Bellow, and I'm not sure if this will work, but I wanted to do Sacrifice with minions and scaling minions life as high up as I can go, and then trying to detonate the minions with the war cries. I'm not sure if that'll work. Yeah, but that does actually work, because I already tried that in 0.1. Oh, you did? The minions, okay. The minions do explode. Okay. In 0.1, there wasn't enough increased revive timer for minions, so it was like too long between exploding them and then them reviving. But now you have the lineage support, right? The one where they can't die. I haven't looked into that. So they can't die, but they can still blow up.
So you would just have a walking army of bombs with you all.
That might
all
work.
time.
You should try it.
I'm gonna try it. That's gonna be my next project.
Yeah.
To see if.
Oh, that might be interesting. Yeah.
I remembered what I was gonna ask you now. What for you? What is like the main difference right now between creating builds in POE1 and POE2? How are you feeling about that? Are you feeling like it's better in one, or is it just kind of like the same? Is it a little bit more intuitive in one?
So I would say that in general, in Path of Exile 1, a lot of things are already like fully understood and worked out. And there's a lot less like exploration kind of thing going on, unless there's like a new mechanic, which is, it's kind of rare that like a new very broad mechanic comes into the game in POE1 now, like something like spell suppression. Like we haven't had that for quite a few patches, something really big in application coming into the game like that. It's more a case of like, here's a new unique that is really powerful. I mean, we just had that in 3.26. We had Whispers of Infinity come into the game, which has massively shaken up the game, right, in a big way. So that's definitely a thing that can happen, and that does introduce suddenly a new angle for buildcraft, and it does really shake up a lot of stuff. Whereas with POE2, I find that the buildcraft, you do have more like basic builds that you just kind of know are going to work. Like my gas grenade Pathfinder was exactly that. I wasn't taking any chances on that. I knew that it was just going to work. I knew that it was going to be a pretty good safe option to league start with. And when it comes to like new mechanics that they add in, there is that exploratory phase where you're kind of like, I don't really know what's going to happen with this, right? Like there's unforeseen mechanics interacting with each other. I don't know how they're going to interact or whatever, and that's kind of how you find out these things and work out what's going on. There is a lot. I mean, there's a lot of that, right? You can look through like the POE2 directory on YouTube. There's tons of people making videos about like weird like builds that they're making and stuff like that, which is amazing, right? That's amazing. You don't really get as much of that in POE1 because I think that a lot of the people that play POE1 have been playing it a long time and they kind of know a lot of stuff about the game already. And it's more a case of like you do the theory craft in POB because you kind of already know how the things are going to feel, or you know how it works. Then if it looks good in POB, then play the build.
Right.
Whereas in POE2, it's like, I'm going to test these mechanics, see what they do, and then you kind of put the build together. And like POB isn't even really that useful in POE2 yet because a lot of the things don't work. Right.
Yeah, you get the
that's the main difference.
The hollow palm, it doesn't even register the damage in. That's what I didn't understand about that. Them adding that, there's no, as far as I know, there's no way to tell how much damage you're actually getting from it. Is there?
In POB right now, so many things are just broken on the calculations. So I think what's happening there is that a lot of the fundamental components for calculating like damage and like EHP and max hit and stuff like that are not quite working correctly. So it's just a case of like, I mean, if you can look on there, like in POE1, there's a couple of things that don't work in POB, right? And they're like highlighted in red text. In POB2, like so much stuff is red text because it's not.
Yeah, it all says not supported. So
yeah, exactly. So I'm not sure whether that's just a thing that's like a work in progress. I do go on POB2 sometimes, and there's like an update. So I think they're just like slowly adding this stuff into the code. Right. But as it stands right now, POB2 isn't like as useful as it is in POE1.
Yeah. I was just looking at the wiki right now to see hollow palm technique. So there is a scaling. There is something that lets you know how much damage you're getting, scaling. And I didn't realize it was this low. That's crazy. The amount of, have you ever looked at it? The amount of flat damage that you're getting for the gem level?
No, I haven't seen it. Oh, what is that? Is that like just like flat damage scaling on gem levels?
Yeah, so the way that the keystone works is physical damage is based on their skill level. But you have added fizz damage, and at gem level 27, it's only 226 to 339. Yeah, we had a little bit of a disconnect. So where I left off was just we were talking about the hollow palm and how low the damage was, because you can still get a significant amount of attack speed with all the gems now. the amount of gems that you can put in, the support gems, you can get a ton of attack speed into a skill. And I was really surprised to see that the damage was this low based on the gem.
But does the hollow palm technique has like a more attack speed multiplier, right, based on your evasion rating on gear?
Right, it's 1% more attack speed per 25 evasion. So you're like I was telling you before. I mean, the my attacks per second is like 7 something, and
that's a lot.
You can get it if you get like an accelerating shrine. Dude, it goes up to like 10.5 attacks per second. It's insane. And then when you're using a skill like Ice Strike, I mean, it's insane, dude. Like it's like playing Flicker Strike without playing Flicker Strike. And you don't have to like rely on any kind of like charge generation or anything. Pretty wild.
Yeah, I think that's Keystone. They actually did quite a good job of that. Like they seem to nail the balance on that Keystone right out of the gate, which is something that's kind of hard to do, because they want to have that Keystone in a place where you can use it early on to like level, right? You want to be able to click on that Keystone and actually play it in the campaign, and they seem to get that in a pretty good place where you can actually use it in the campaign and use it in the end game.
Right.
So they obviously got the scaling quite good on that, that was one of the big questions before 0.3 launch, because a lot of people were planning on starting Hollow Palm, and if it was bad, that was going to be really bad for a lot of people's league start. So.
Right. Yeah, it was. That was cool. I like it so far, man. It feels pretty good. I want to test it out with a quarterstaff. I think that like super end game min maxing, I think a quarterstaff still might be better. But I mean, because you can get the plus. What's the max on a two-handed weapon? Is it +6 or +7?
+7 on the quarterstaff.
+7. So you can get the +7 skill gem. And then on top of that, you can get just a metric ton of physical damage. So I mean, let's see what the I don't know what it is with the internet this morning, man. It's running pretty slow. Let's see. Does this tell you? Huh. Interesting. It doesn't. There's no gem level progression on the wiki. That's weird. Maybe in POE2 I could find it. But I wanted to look up what the gems level scaling was on Ice Strike. Okay, so let's say roughly you get 7 from the quarterstaff, and then you get 2 from the amulet, and then or 3 from the amulet, and you get 2 from the glove, or 4 from the amulet, right? So it's like what, 13 levels?
Yeah, so I'm really good at it.
Yeah, 33. You're getting 765 increased damage, or base damage off of the on the third strike of it. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's a lot of damage. I mean,
it's pretty.
I do think, generally speaking, like that Keystone is a little bit strange with the way they've implemented it. Means that you're always going to be in a position where you kind of feel like, okay, I've got this, and I can have like a really good weapon that like replaces it ultimately. Whereas in POE1, the way they did Hollow Palm technique was that it was completely isolated from weapons, right? You would stack dexterity to get like flat fizz.
Right.
And that way it's never competing with a weapon. Whereas like you just said there, you can literally just uncheck the Keystone and place a weapon on, and it might actually just be better, right? With like better scaling. There's actually no real difference between the two, which is, that is something that's a little bit strange, I guess. But I still think they've done a good job of implementing that, the way they balanced it to work in the campaign and in the end game.
Yeah, it's fun so far, man. I'm having a lot of fun with it. The other thing that's really good about this Keystone is that you get a lot of crit chance, because obviously you're going to go evasion energy shield, right? If you're playing a monk, you're not going to go armor. Yep. So you basically get crit capped very fast. And I don't know, it's pretty cool. I like it a lot. So far it's really, really fun. I really want to try that Titan build now that I brought that up. This is my problem, man, with Path of Exile, and this is why I love this game so much. I'm like, all right, man, I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna get to level 100, and we're gonna min max this character, and then I have like Like, oh, there's a squirrel. Like I have that kind of brain going on where I'm like, oh man, look at that cool. That's a cool build, or that's a good idea. Like I always just want to try it. That's why I end up with like 15 characters every league, dude. It's crazy.
That's good though. That's the best part about PoE, and that's kind of how I felt about PoE1 for the longest time, where it's just like there's always some interesting thing that makes you want to do something else, which is kind of like what keeps you hooked, right? You keep wanting to, because that, for me, the game ends when you actually reach the destination. Like I always feel like once I get there and I have this all-powerful character and I know that I can kill everything in the game, like, I mean, in this league, it was the same. I did everything with the gas grenade Pathfinder, and once I get there, I'm done with the build, right? For me, the fun part is that journey of like getting there, right? It's improving your gear, reaching that point where like you've got all of the important stuff on the tree and you've got all of the important ascendancy points and maybe like the specific uniques and things like that you needed. And then it's kind of seeing the build all come together at once, and that's like the fun aspect of it.
Right.
Once you're there, right? And some people do like playing like the finished product. For me, it's all about the journey, like building the character. That's the fun part.
Yeah, I like that. That's probably the reason why I never get bored with this game ever. Like in PoE 1 or 2, it's just like if you get if it starts to feel stale, it's not even really boredom. It just starts to feel a little stale, especially when you get up into the high 90s. It's just such a grind to keep, especially with the mapping the way it is right now. It's such a grind to, dude. I played 3 characters. Okay, I have my blood mage is level 92, my monk is level 91, and then I gave up on the tactician / witch hunter / gemling because I tried all 3 of them. But because there's just the visual clarity, and I just now found my very first overlapping towers. Just now. Like last night was the first time I found it.
The Atlas has been wild for me this league. Like, okay, so I got the gas grenade Pathfinder to I think 94 or maybe 95 before I stopped playing, and I didn't see a single thing with the beam in the sky. Not one, right? I had to buy all of the fragments for the Arbiter. Like I couldn't. Yeah, I had to buy all of them. Didn't see a single one, and also there's not even any in the fog, right? So I actually looked into this a little bit because I've heard this happening to people in 0.1, right? And I thought that they had fixed it in 0.1 because I remember actually reading a thread about them fixing this problem. And the problem was that they actually had it so that some very rare seeds on the Atlas could spawn without any citadels, like in vision, and it would be the case where they were like too far away, or there was some kind of weird glitch happening, right, causing that. Okay. And I remember actually reading that they posted on a Reddit thread of someone with this. They actually went into that guy's account and looked at the Atlas, and obviously they could see everything, right? They didn't have the fog. Right. And they said, like, that guy was actually really close to a bunch of citadels, but he didn't know it because they were, like, barely in reach of being revealed in the fog. Right. So, however, this patch, there's something weird going on with citadels. I've seen a lot of posts on Reddit about people saying that they haven't had any. I haven't had any. And I done a podcast like a week back talking to Sir Gorg and Try and Local. And Local had the same thing, right? He's played, I think, more than I did. And he also didn't find any citadels, right? Which is, now there's something weird going on, right? It's not just me. There's someone else that is like just in the same podcast as me. That's just one person. Right. So there must be other people as well. And I went on Reddit and I saw, there's actually quite a few posts of this, of people not finding any citadels at all. So there's something weird going on with that, with the way that those are spawning into the map. That's weird because in general, the Atlas like is having some bugs this patch, dude. Like there's a bunch of maps that I can't reach because they're just like, there's like a triangle, right, like that. Mm-hmm. And then in the middle there's a map which is like mega juice from two overlapping towers. Right. But I can't run it because there's no path to get to it. Yeah. So there's a lot of that. I have found more citadels than I've ever seen in any of the leagues. Well, obviously 0.2 I didn't really play, but in 0.1 comparison, I didn't find barely any. And then this league, I find them all the time. Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah,
I don't know what's causing
that. Is weird. Yeah, I mean, I've seen a bunch of people saying the exact opposite of what I've said there. Like a bunch of people saying that they've basically seen citadels immediately upon like starting the Atlas. They've instantly like seen one in the fog. Yeah. So, I mean, it is random, but I feel like you should not be reaching. Like even level, you shouldn't be reaching level 90 without seeing the first one. That is wild, man.
Yeah, that is
like
wild.
That is crazy.
I don't know. What are your thoughts on the way that they're doing the Atlas right now? Do you like the fact that you can't choose the map? Do you think they should go back to? Because I know that would cause some problems with the way that the biomes work. Like if you could pick your own map, it wouldn't go thematically with the way that the Atlas is set up. But I don't really know a way around that. Maybe like, I don't know. I was thinking like maybe where they would allow you to have the Waystone be a certain biome and then just have multiples of the same biome. That way you could just pick one that's in that biome that you could run. You could do it like that, I guess. Yeah. But I don't really know what the solution. What are your thoughts right now on the way that the Atlas is? I
think so. I mean, I definitely prefer POE1's Atlas progression, but I think the POE2's Infinite Atlas thing can work. I think they haven't quite realized what they were going for with that system just yet. Like it feels like they haven't really put, and obviously that's because they've been putting tons of effort into finishing the campaign and stuff like that. It's not like they've put a bunch of work into the end game and then it hasn't worked, right? They literally made it in 0.1. They haven't really done that much to it ever since then. So I think we're going to see in 0.4 what their true plan is for it, because they've said that this next update that's coming in December is going to be the end game update.
Okay.
So whether that's going to be them completely overhauling the thing from the ground up, or whether they're going to actually like really double down on that whole like Infinite Atlas and go for it. For me, I think that it can work because I do see like glimmers of something good there. When you're like progressing through the Atlas and you reveal this like sector with the tower, and then you see like a cool unique map, and there's like a couple of really good layout maps, and you like juice them up big time, right, with the tablets. Like there is something good going on there, but there's too much. There's too much. I don't even know how to describe it. There's too much busy work to get the good stuff, right? So I think they can lean into some things that they used in POE1. Like, for example, the whole like favoriting map system could be used in a way where you can remove a map from a biome, right? So like, for example, here's a biome that comes up, and I hate this map, right? I can't remember what the map's called now. There's a map with all these trenches, right? And it's just awful. It's just terrible, right? All you do is like walk through all these like really windy corridor trenches.
Isn't it called trenches? Isn't that what
it might be called trenches?
I think it is called trenches.
Yeah. That map is awful, right? So you could say, okay, I hate trenches, so I'm removing it. And then whenever you come up to that biome, you can no longer spawn trenches in that biome. So now you only spawn these other maps. So that is something that they could lean into, I think. The favoriting map system from POE1 is something that was very good and successful. And they could use it in a different way in POE2, but it could still have the same desired effect where you're able to generally have more agency over what maps you're running. And I also think it comes down to them adding more things that are interesting on the Atlas Ultimate. The whole idea of them having an exploration theme to the Atlas rather than just having this, complete this map, then complete this map, and end up completing the whole thing, and then you can have full agency. The whole idea of them being this complete freedom of exploration is that you should find really cool things on the Atlas.
Right.
So I think they need to lean more into that. And for example, right now we have like you go to this section and cleanse corruption, you go to that section and cleanse corruption. That they should take that concept and do some other things with it. Be like, okay, here's an entire section of a biome which is completely covered in abyss mobs. It's in every map in that biome is covered in abyss mobs. There's nothing else, right? That's all there is. And then you go over to this biome and suddenly you found 4 maps in a cluster, and all there is strong boxes. Every monster in that map is in strong boxes, waiting to like spawn out of the strong boxes, right? So those sort of things would be really cool, where you don't really know what you're going to find until you go and explore outwards. That is, right. I think they really, if they're sure that that's something that they want to do with the end game, I think there has to be more interesting things that you can find and more random things that you can find, right?
Yeah, that would be really cool to do it like that, the way that you just described it. I was just thinking of how that would actually work. That's really cool. What I don't like is the way that they have the tower set up where you have to path to the tower, right?
So
in order for you to maximize what you're actually juicing, you have to go all the way around and come back, and you have to like flank the towers, because if not, you're just wasting maps that you would have been able to run. And so it's like it makes it like really tedious to juice the maps. And I think that if they were able to, I don't really know how you would fix that, like, because you have to path to the tower. So I don't know if there'd be like a way to, I don't know, if you get a tower on the screen, maybe you don't have to path to it. You know, I don't know. Maybe they're going to get rid of towers. I don't know. They said they're going to rework them. So
for me, okay, here's my take on towers. I think that the juicing aspect of towers is bad. Mm-hmm. Okay, juicing in POE1 was done way better. Scarabs are just a way better solution. Like, here's a map I want to run. I put whatever scarabs I want in there to juice the exact map. That's it. That is a better solution. It was already done better in POE1. They should be using that system, right? That was already better. But I think that towers, in terms of the exploration part of it, should stay. Because I think that's a really cool idea of, I go to this tower so then I can see more on the map. I actually really like that idea of like revealing the map from a tower. And if you remove the juicing aspect of towers and now you only have that like map revealing aspect, I think towers become a little bit more of a fun thing, because you're happy to find a tower then, right? Because now it's like, I find the tower, then I can see more on the map, which means that I can then fish for like better maps. I can fish for more interesting things on the atlas. Towers no longer become like this kind of awkward thing like you were describing there, where you have to work out what is the best way I can get to the tower without expending the best maps, so I can then run those best maps after I've juiced them, right? So that is, I think they should keep towers for the exploration, remove the juicing aspect, and, you know, add in something like scarabs.
Yeah, and that fits thematically too, right? Like, if you were going up into a tower, you would be able to see more. So that I like the way that works too. I think that they should keep that. I don't know, man. Maybe they're gonna remove them. I don't know.
Yeah, they might do. I mean, they might completely rework the atlas, right? It might actually just not be what we have right now. You have to remember that came together in 3 months. Who knows? They may have been working on the end game in the background with a group of devs for this whole time, right? They may have been working on something else entirely. We just don't know, right? All we know is that they've added the end game in 0.1, which took them 3 or 4 months. And then they've added a few things since then, like little tweaks to it to make it feel better. But those tweaks haven't really changed the overall vibe of the end game. It's still the same as what it was. And so maybe they're just content with keeping it how it is, because it is their intention to replace it.
I think the main thing that hints to me that they're just going to remove them is the fact that we don't have a tablet stash tab, or a way to put the tablets into a stash. They haven't added a tab, and you would think that by now that would have been one of the things they would add, or at least like a tab affinity to where you could just stash them. They haven't even bothered doing that. So I really think they're just going to be removing the tablets altogether.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
We'll see what that actually looks like. What are your thoughts on the radio silence right now with GGG? We haven't heard anything about balance, really. I mean, they've made a few like hot fixes and stuff, but as far as like game balance, we haven't heard anything at all.
No. So I think that when it comes to POE2 and POE1, they're in kind of a bit of a transitionary phase at the moment, in terms of probably getting into the swing of that new like 4-month cycle is something that is, I can imagine it's very draining on the team right now, because it might be the case that swapping between the two games is super awkward. I don't know how the internals work between the games. Like, I don't know if POE1 and POE2 are similar to work on, or whether like one is particularly difficult because it's all like spaghetti coding. Who knows, right? I have no input on that at all. But I can imagine that it's quite jarring going from the first game to the second game, because I, as a content creator, find it jarring going between the two games, right? The mechanics between the two games are quite different, right? It's trying to remember the way everything works in both games is quite difficult, especially when you kind of want to know how everything works and keep it all, you know?
Right.
So that I can imagine that it's a little bit difficult for them getting into this new system of like 4-month releases. I'm not that disappointed in them not saying anything at this stage. I think that 0.3 has been a pretty big success for them. And I think that overall, they were probably quite impressed by the turnout for 3.26 as well, because that's a game that they left on the back burner for almost a year and did nothing with, right? So them coming out with a league like 3.26 and it being fairly successful in terms of player retention, things like that, that's probably impressed them internally. They're probably like, well, like, guys, we can't just leave this game behind, right? Because it still makes a ton of money. Like, it's still doing really well. And as they said before, that is a game that people love. They know that people love it.
Yeah.
So I think that the reason why there's a silence at the moment is because they want to be able to do what they've set out to do with the 4-month cadence. And that might mean that each game kind of has to suffer a little bit, right? Because it might be that this game needs these changes desperately, right, for POE2. Mm-hmm. And it might be that POE1 like still needs those updates, but they might have to just say, okay, we're done now at this stage of the league. We're going to work on POE1, then we're coming back to POE2. That's the impression that I get with it, is that they could and maybe even should be doing more, but they just can't because they've committed to this now, and that's what they're going with. I mean, Jonathan even said it himself. They're going with dates now rather than content, right? Yep. So then they're meeting the date, and they're meeting it no matter what. We even saw that in this patch, right? 0.3, the Druid was meant to be in here. The Triad of the Ancestors was meant to be in there. That stuff didn't make it because it's content that they hadn't finished by the time the date came around. That means it doesn't make it in. You know, it'll be in next time. So I think it's just a case of them probably struggling a little bit to balance out the two games in terms of developing, but you know, I'm confident that they can do it. They've been so far. I'm pretty impressed so far. Like when they made that post, like I don't know when it was, like a couple of weeks back, they made a post about how we're going to be ready to talk about 3.27 soon, right? That was wild. That to me, that was crazy. Like, we're 3 weeks into the POE2 league and they're already posting about the next POE1 league, right? Yeah. That is crazy. Like, that is not something I would expect from GGG a year back when we were in this crazy period, right? Where there was just not much of anything going on. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing a great job, I think, of keeping their word now. I think they saw the backlash too from the POE1 community. I was just looking at the Steam chart numbers on POE1, and there was 178,000 people playing for the new league that came out. So, yep. I mean, obviously, dude, there's a lot of people that still love that game. I think it would be a colossal mistake for them to just kind of abandon it. You know, I don't. Yeah. And I think that would really hurt POE2 as well. You know, if they did that.
Yeah, I think it would be financially, it'd be a terrible decision for them to just ditch a game that they worked on for 10 years. That was only growing, by the way, every league, right? If you look at the Steam charts for POE1, it was just growing and growing and growing all the way up until 3.25, and then obviously it dropped off for 3.26 because there was that 11-month gap, and that 11-month gap caused a lot of long-time players to ditch the game permanently. Yeah. Because they kind of broke the cycle, right? It was a cycle that they had going for 10 plus years, and then they kind of abandoned it because of all the stuff that was going on with POE2. But I think it would not be. It's not very wise to just ditch POE1 because they've got a game there that just. It's just. You would be scrapping years and years of work, right? It wouldn't make any sense for them to do that. So I think them going for this kind of split release cadence with the 4-month gap, that is, if they can pull it off, like it's gonna be wild. Like for me, I already feel it. Like for me, right? I play both games and I already feel like I can't play anything else, right? Because I'm playing POE1. And now, like, I'm just thinking, I'm probably done with this league. And bang, there's POE2, right? And then it's POE2's going crazy, and then bang, there's POE1 again. So that's exactly what they wanted when they talked about it at ExileCon. Obviously, at ExileCon, they said it was going to be a 3-month cadence rather than 4, but even at 4, it's crazy.
Right.
There's just so much content.
3 months would be insane. Just to do it every 3 months, that would be wild. You know how I know that they're probably struggling a little bit is that Jonathan has literally said in every single interview that he's been asked since the 0.1 launch is the controller swap with the mouse. Every single interview he has said, "Oh, it should be ready. It should be ready. They probably just need to, like add it in." Yeah. And we still don't have it. So obviously, they're probably pressed a lot for time. I think that the amount. I mean, think about the amount of developers and coders and stuff you would need to hire to manage 2 games of this size. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's a wild task they're undertaking with that. Like, I would have expected them to split the teams, like just have actual separate teams, right? Which is, I really didn't expect them to do this thing where they're kind of swapping between the 2 games. But if they can make it work, then who am I to say that that's the wrong thing to do?
Right. Yeah, man, I'm excited for the future of both games. I mean, I think that once we get the asynchronous trade into Path of Exile 1, I think that's gonna breathe a lot of new life into the game. I think that is especially once the league starts to die out. I think they're going to see the retention numbers just stay like they are right now.
Yeah, that's the trading change is a massive thing for player retention because it keeps the game alive way beyond what you would usually, because like people want to buy something and nobody's online, right? But now they want to buy it and they just buy it because even if that person's quit the league, that all of their stuff is still for sale.
Yep.
And they can just buy it, right? So that is actually a huge change for player retention, I think. Really, really big change for trade. And I think obviously in 3.27, they have to add that feature to POE1. I think that there's just no way they can't do it, right?
Right. I mean, it should come next. I think that it will. I think there'll be a big uprising if it doesn't come next.
And I think that feature alone, like that they could do a half-baked league, right? That feature alone will have a massive amount of players coming back to play POE1 for sure.
100%.
Like I expect 3.27 to be more players than 3.26. And I do think that overall, the more they can stick to this new cycle of 4-month releases, the player number for POE1 is going to go up again. Because what's going to happen is, even though it might not be gaining that many new players, those players that quit POE1 and kind of broke the cycle will come back naturally if the game is starting to get those regular releases again, because they played the game for a reason, right? They enjoyed it. So,
and I see a lot of people that come into my comments on YouTube or that I just see on Reddit that they'll say, "Oh, I'm brand new to POE1 because I played POE2." So you get a lot of you get a big influx of players in that from that angle too. And I think that if they continue this way, and think about it, once POE2 is fully released and it's free, think about the I don't know what you would call it, but like the trickle effect, I guess you could call it, is the POE2 players that are playing, the league ends, they're done, and they're like, "Oh, well, I have never tried Path of Exile 1," and then they go in that, and then they get addicted to that, obviously, because you kind of can't help it. Plus, like POE2 is a really good, it's a really good bridge, right? Like to learning the mechanics, and like the passive tree is a lot more intuitive in POE2. And I think that once players get like the idea of the mechanics and how kind of like the passive tree works, and they're not so intimidated going into POE1. So I think it works really well in that regard.
It does, yeah. It's a great onboarding process. It's a way better onboarding process than POE1 ever was, right? Yeah. So that is because they never really done, you got to remember that like POE1's campaign, like especially the initial part, was developed by like literally a handful of developers. We're talking like 5 to 10 people, like those first few acts, right? So there's just like there was barely any like kind of refining going in there to that experience. Whereas now they've got this giant team and they've got all of that experience behind them. And so obviously POE2 is such a more well-refined and kind of all-encompassing experience, right? When you actually begin the game as a new player. So yeah, you're right. Like you play POE2, and if you've never played POE1, you can then go to POE1 and you kind of have a bunch of the ideas of how this thing works already in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a good onboarding process.
I wanted to, I was going to ask you about this a little bit before. It kind of went out of order of what I wanted to touch on as far as topics, but you know, the new helmet in POE2 where it's surrounded, it allows you to have your surrounded, I don't know. I'm not sure if you made a video about this. Somebody made a video about it, just about the new surrounded tech with that helmet. Do you like that kind of thing where it synergizes just with like the only way that those nodes on the tree work is if you have that item? Do you like that kind of thing, or do you think, what's your thoughts on that?
So I didn't make a video on it. I think Palstrom made a video on it.
Okay, yeah.
I saw a few other people make one as well. So where to start with this? This is a really interesting topic because that is not, the surrounded nodes are not the only thing like that on the passive tree. There's actually quite a few bits like that where there's stats that you don't really care about, right? And the reason why you don't care about them is because you can't realistically invest into them because they're too situational. And the surrounded stat is a really good example of that, right? You have a stat which only applies when you have 5 monsters like around you, right, within a certain area around you, which is like considered to be surrounded, which is a stat that didn't exist in POE1. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the idea that, okay, like, so in 0.3, that helmet has literally replaced the deepest tower, right? So in 0.2, we had the deepest tower, which was a unique helmet. And what it did was it made enemies in your presence count as low life, which meant that you could invest into a bunch of nodes around that exact same area on the tree, by the way, around the mercenary area, like the dexterity strength area. And all of it was just tons of damage, like 2 to 3 times as much damage as you would usually get on a normal damage node on the tree, but only against low life targets, which was everything in your presence because you were using this helmet, right? So it was incredible amounts of damage for your investment. That helmet, the surrounded helmet, has literally replaced the deepest tower, right? They removed the deepest tower from the game in this patch because they realized that it was not very good for buildcraft because everyone was using it because it was too strong. And so they removed the deepest tower and they replaced it with basically the exact same thing. It's the same thing again, okay? It's a helmet which makes, instead of doing this thing with low life, it makes you count as surrounded. And once again, just like those low life clusters on the tree, there's a bunch of nodes on the tree that only apply when you're surrounded. And because of that, they are very strong, right? They're situational nodes. Like, here's something which is 2 to 3, maybe even 4 times as strong as what you would usually get, but it only works when you're surrounded. And so that helmet that makes it so you're surrounded all the time is obviously going to be the exact same thing again. It's literally just a replacement for the deepest tower. And yeah, to answer your question of do I really like those nodes on the tree in terms of like they only work with this helmet? No, I don't. I think that it's terrible game design, honestly, because the idea is that those nodes are literally trash without that helmet, right? That they are, like, just being honest.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to do this. I don't understand why.
And also, it's so obvious that helmet is completely overtuned. Because it just gives you way too much compared to what other people would have for their points on the tree if they're using a different helmet. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm not a fan of that. I think that it's kind of it's almost as if, you know, they got these nodes on the tree and they were like, well, no one's using these nodes, so let's add an item to the game to make people use them. So that's kind of how it feels like, but it's just it is ridiculous like that. Nobody can reasonably tell me that helmet is like good for the game. It's just not. Like it's so brain dead, right? You just equip that helmet on any build in that area. You get so much damage, so much like life regen and whatever else. It's crazy.
Yeah, I saw the in the video that I watched, he had like a little text document pulled up of all of the stats that you get with the when you're surrounded, and it was just like, dude, why wouldn't you? Any build that's on this side of the tree, I mean, it just kind of makes it to where like you have to put that helmet on.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
It's just the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is literally just the best, and it's like I said, it's a no-brainer almost, which was what the deepest tower was like in the previous patch, and they removed it for that reason, right? They removed the deepest tower because they realized it was like that, and then they just replaced it with the same thing.
Yeah, it's wild, man. I'll ask you one last topic. I'll cover. I just wanted to ask you real quick, just as far as crafting and where you think it's at, and have you crafted any, like, I'm sure you have, but like what have you crafted so far as just absolutely busted stuff this league?
So I think the crafting changes are crazy. Going from almost no crafting to crazy amounts of deterministic crafting in this patch is a huge change, and I don't know if they even knew it, how powerful it was when they released it. Like I'm actually not convinced they did, because it doesn't seem to align with too much of what they were going for in older patches, but perhaps they've given up on some of those philosophies.
Right.
Yeah, I crafted a pretty crazy crossbow early on into the league, which didn't cost all too much. And that crossbow, by the way, I just used it to kill everything in the game, because the balance of the game isn't really that. Like you can kill everything in the game in seconds, even with a crossbow that's like 80% of perfect, right? Or even 70% of perfect.
Right.
But yeah, you can literally craft perfect items, like 6 tier 1 affixes, deterministically, using all of these crafting systems, like the omens that allow you to, annul an exact suffix, or the main outlier one, which is like causing a lot of the problems, is the homogenizing exaltation omen, that's the big one that I'm not convinced that's going to stay in the game, right, long term. That might be a little too deterministic,
right?
Because you got to remember as well, when you add these tools into the game, like, people are going to work out the best way to use them very quickly, right? There's some very smart people who play this game. Yep. They're going to know what to do, and they're going to expose those things, like, and it's going to be out there. So yeah, that crafting is, I don't want to say it's too strong, but it might be too strong. Like, I just think that I love that there's crafting in the game now. That is something for me which was, it was just so lacking in 0.1 and 0.2, right? So I love that crafting exists now. It might be a little bit overtuned, but I would rather that crafting exist than not exist.
Right. They were talking about how they still wanted it to be like RNG based, but this just removes all of that. I mean, like, you kind of have to get like the tags on like initially to use the homogenizing exalt. So I guess it's like semi RNG, but man, it's like, it's so easy with the recomp. All you have to do is just go on trade if you're playing Trade League, and you just get a tier 1 and a tier 7. You slap it on, you can remove the prefix or suffix, and then you just use the homogenizing exalt, and then boom, your item's like, it's like perfect. Now with the, I
would say that from my playthrough in sorry to cut you off.
No,
from my playthrough in SSF, like, I found that the new crafting systems actually feel quite good in SSF, because those really rare omens, you really don't get them very often. Like, you like the homogenizing exaltation. In my trade playthrough, I found one of those all the way up to level 94, and I was doing ritual the whole time.
Oh, okay.
So they're pretty rare, right? Very, very rare. I don't know whether I was lucky or unlucky on that, because this is the first time that I've gone like all in on ritual. I didn't really do much of that in the other leagues. So from a SSF perspective, the crafting actually felt really quite good, because it feels like you have a good level of agency over your crafting, but you don't have the level of being able to just constantly buy like the right materials to be able to solve like a 1 in 3 chance, right? Some of the crafting is like, here's a 1 in 3 chance, but if it fails, I just remove it and go again. Well, in SSF, you can't always just go again, because you don't have the stuff to go again, right? So in SSF, it does feel quite good. In trade, it might be a bit too powerful, but as I said, I prefer that it exists than not exist. So I'm kind of, I played a lot of 0.3. I enjoyed it a lot, and part of that was the crafting. So
yeah. Profit crafting is absolutely insane. I mean, you can craft an item that is worth 40 or 50 divine, and you only spend 6 or 7 on it, and it's wild, dude. Like, you can, You can literally make a mirror like that. It's crazy. And now with the asynchronous trade, you don't have to be online. You just stack your store with just a bunch of 40, 50 divine items. You come back and you have a mirror after you go to bed.
Yeah,
it's pretty wild. I've been having having a blast with it. The only thing I don't like is I don't like the gameplay of like I'll do in POE1, I do profit crafting in the beginning of like flasks, really basic stuff. I'll look on POE Ninja and I'll see what the meta is, what everybody's playing. That way I know kind of like what items I can grab real quick and put the Eldritch implicits on and just kind of do like some really basic profit crafting like that. But I don't like sitting in my hideout and playing the game like that. I'd rather be out and like blasting. But but it's pretty wild, this league, to say the least.
That is one of those things with that new trade system that I really enjoy, is that you don't feel like you need to ever really be in your hideout, right? You just shove things in there, price it up, and that's it. You're done. Just get back out and carry on playing. I mean, this league I played trade like to begin with because I really wanted to try out that new system. And as I said, I'm usually an SSF player in POE1. So for me, it was a great experience. I think that I can't really say enough about the crafting. Like they implemented it so well that it's actually kind of impressive that there wasn't any kind of like weird problems going on with it, right? It was actually just done in such a fantastic way. So they really nailed that. The trading is excellent.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm having a lot of fun this league. This is the like 0.1 was like this, but I think that was like just because it was new. It was something new, and this one is like they really made a lot of positive changes to the game. So I mean, I'll probably end up playing all the way up until 3.27's release. And you touched on that a little bit, where you feel like you can't play anything else. And I'm really excited for Last Epoch. I know a lot of people don't like that game, but I like it. I think it's pretty fun. I think it has a lot of potential, like the systems in it and stuff. And I don't think it's going to have very much room for me anymore. Or I'm not going to have very much room for it anymore.
Yeah. This is the thing. I think that sort of system of them releasing the games like that, obviously there's going to be people that only want to play one of the two games, which is fine. And I do think that if POE2 continues to go in the direction that it's going in right now, those players are going to eventually play both games. So maybe that is what they're going for ultimately, right? They can secure both player bases by kind of making the games very similar, and they can still it's a way of being able, you kind of, in that sense, you don't really alienate any of your players, because you kind of cater for what you've already got, and you also you have that new player base which is moving forward with the game as it develops. Whereas if you had this kind of thing where you had two really different games, you would never get that convergence of players, right? Because people who are like dead set that don't like POE2, or there's like POE2 players that are dead set that don't like POE1, will never really like the other one because they're going in complete different directions. Whereas right now it really does feel like POE2 is going more in the direction of POE1. So maybe eventually they'll be so similar that you will just have that convergence of players.
Yeah, I knew that they were going to struggle with finding a middle ground if they wanted to do like the more methodical, slow-paced combat. I know that a lot of people from POE1 wouldn't enjoy that because they just want to like blast. And I think that they're doing a really phenomenal job at finding that middle ground. So, I'm excited to see what's coming up in the future.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah, man. So I appreciate you coming on. Let everybody know where they can find you and how they can support your content and your channel.
Yeah, so Dreamcore on YouTube. I make mechanics guides, talk about tech, stuff like that for both games. And yeah, just find me on YouTube. Cool.
I'll put all your descriptions I'll put all your links in the description.
Awesome chat.
Thank you guys for watching another episode. If you guys are enjoying these, please consider leaving a like and subscribe. Also, don't forget to go and subscribe to Dreamcore's channel. And I have some more of these scheduled for Path of Exile 2. And then once the POE1 launch happens at the end of October, then we will switch back over to doing Path of Exile 1. So stay tuned. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.